in front of you. It's just a really, really nice way to self-motivate. So basically what I'm doing today is I'm going to be painting some of Matoaka's face in here, painting some of these feathers again, or I might be painting a little Tsenacommacah's face some, and just kind of just going around the painting. At this point, I'm just going around the painting for looking at different things that kind of call out to my eyes, you know, things that just call out to me. Angelo Stanley, Cleveland, Ohio, brother, back in the day, brother. How you doing, man? How you doing? You still playing those drums, man? You still rolling all that jazz off them drums, brother? I can still hear y'all playing now from back in the day. I can still hear all you guys playing now. Yeah, man, that was some good stuff back then, wasn't it? It was some good stuff. Man, I wish we could get back some of that. Man, we need to show them how it used to roll, man. Y'all need to go on concert, man. Old school, the old school boys, you know. But anyway, I don't even know if you're still here or not, you know. But shucks, man. I'm gonna hit this button to bring you on the camera. Now, if you can't, then you can't, you know, whatever. But anyway, so nevertheless, back in my studio again, painting. Let me see if I can get this exposure right. Yeah, because I want that to be kind of clear, okay? And, you know, just going around the painting trying to update and fix things. You know, I got my little feather kit over here, so when I get on the feathers, I can just I got my light. I kind of put a little luminous light where I need it, and then I go for what I need to go for. Today, I think I'm going to start out around the face of Matoaka, aka Pocahontas, but her real name is Matoaka. Her name was never Pocahontas. I think I'm going to start out around her face and work on that. Just work on some of those skin tones, get some of that stuff together. And to start that out, I have my brushes already selected here. And I'm going to start out with my Renaissance brush. And this is a cat's tongue sable. And a lot of times I do start out with even a smaller brush than that. I have a Sculptor brush, very tiny, and this is also a cat's tongue sable. I think I'm going to have that on the ready. I'm just going to keep this one over here. Then all of my other kind of standard brushes, when I get to this detail stage, you know, several sables, both filbers, flats and brights, and also some very small rounds, ones and zeros kind of stuff. Okay, so but since I'm starting out with some detail, and I haven't really wetted anything yet, I'm going to start out with this synthetic bristle. And this is a number 1, and this is not as firm as a normal bristle, but it's kind of firm. But I like the synthetics because they hold their point really nice for a round. Because you know you get rounds basically for their points. You know, that's what you use a round mostly for. And what I'm going to do is just go into these little sections of Matoaka with the really dark color. I'm using just, not even straight Mars black, but I'm using almost a straight Mars black. I might have a little bit more ultramarine blue mixed into it. And what I want to do when I'm doing her is I want to have, and I have reference pictures because this picture really don't exist anywhere, so I take like 2 or 3 other pictures. And I kind of combine information in my brain to make a unique image, you know. So right now what I'm doing is I'm just really just glazing. This is called glazing. I have about 30% Galkit and 20% linseed oil. And what I'm doing is just putting another set of tones down over the blacks that's already there, just to make them a little bit more shimmery, a little bit more intense. And I'm using like the tip of this brush. Now this brush is a little bit big, but the point allows me to get some very, very small little lines. You know, you just got to just barely apply the line to the canvas, but you can get some nice little kind of hair lines in there, because I am painting on her hair right now. And So I get a few little hairlines in there. Of course, you know, I like it when you guys come to my room, say hi to me, keep my company while I'm in my studio. And of course, it's great because, you know, you got COVID-19, so you can't get out and about as much. So it's nice to be able to just holler at some people every once in a while using the social tools that we have. And it's just barely just, you know, I'm really not even adding highlights. At this point, I'm adding some shimmer, the dark part of the shimmer, to her hair. And now what I'm going to do is I had, you know, some other models come into my studio and pose, and I photographed them. And, you know, people whose features look like the feature of the person I'm trying to create. And basically I had them come in just for some skin tone, so I can have some accurate skin tones that I can look at for information. And also for values, light values, you know, and textures. So that's what I'm going to be focusing on today. How do you get the textures that you want in your painting, you know? And are your values dark enough where you think they should be dark at, you know? Are they? You know? And of course, what you want the image to do is to pop. You want the image to have vehemence, to have a sense of life, a sense of excitement, you know? You know, when you see it, it should be, I like my paintings to be an eye feast. You know, I want the person to, the observer, to, you know, have some type of excitement when they look at this painting, you know? What is the light doing? What is the objects? I mean, how well is it painted, you know? All these things actually matter. And all these things add to the painting to create interest to the painting. And it's very important that your painting has, you know, because it may be sitting in the gallery. And of course, you can't just say, come over and watch me, you know. It doesn't have a mouth. So I have to give it a mouth. I have to give it a voice. And the way I give my paintings voice is by luring people in with the play on light, with the play on color, play on texture, tint, and tone, I should say. The play on shapes. All those things help the person enjoy the painting. Because even if the painting is about something kind of morbid and not cool, it should still be some type of pleasure. Because a lot of times people don't know what's going on in the painting, or that painting, I don't agree with what's your subject matter, but they like the painting. They like the painting because the painting's well done. You know, the painting is done in a nice way that it's interesting. They still want to look at it, you know. Can I have somebody in my room? I'm going to come over and see who that is. Alva Green, waving. I'm waving back at you, Alva Green. How you doing? How you doing? Okay, so let me just check my audio to make sure you guys can hear me. Because what I do with that is I go right into my live and kind of listen. I can kind of monitor a little bit. Well, let's see if I got my audio right. First I got to turn it up. Ooh, I don't hear anything, so let me see. Let me see if everything's going right or wrong here. Oops, no, I don't even have audio. No wonder nobody can see me, because I'm talking, and this isn't even plugged in. It's not even a matter of just checking to see if something is working. You gotta plug this stuff in, man. Okay, so, there we go. I got it in. So, I think you guys should be able to begin to see me now. Hopefully, I mean hear me. You should be able to hear me, I think. Let's see. It might not be plugged in all the way. Oh, there we go. There we go. I can hear myself. Great. Okay. And I invite everybody to my lives. If you don't want to go, you don't have to click on the button. But, you know, helps keep me company. I feel good when I have visitors. I have people to talk to. You know, I'm a sociable person. I like meeting and talking and greeting. I'm not just a artist who's a hermit. Just a hermit sitting in the studio all day long, being very boring. That's no good. So yeah, and I'm easy to talk to. Okay. So what I'm doing is just adding some highlights and details so that if when the viewer is looking close, when they're looking closer to the painting, you know, for close observation, this is the part that I usually do, you know, towards the end of a painting. And I'm looking out for my brush marks, any kind of like brush marks that are not as good as they could be. When I painted it initially, I'm also looking to improve that as well, you know. And these are my details kind of brush marks here, because basically the painting is painted. You know, everything is where it's supposed to be. Everything is going like I want it, so I'm pretty much happy with it. So now I'm embellishing. You know, what I want to do now is make the painting better. You know, everything that I do is now geared toward how can I make this painting better. So that's all I'm focusing on is just, okay, better, 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 more better, you know. And sometimes that is just making dark tones darker, maybe highlights more richer, maybe some colors that might have initially when I painted them on was nice and intense, or they might have dulled down a little bit. And what I would do now at this point is I would be picking those colors back up. I would be trying to get those colors just through glazing. There's something called glazing in painting where you just put in a color with a lot of tone in it into your painting. So but also, you just don't want to have like stuff there. You know, you want to I pay attention to little small shadows. You know, not the big shadows. I have a lot of big shadows. You can look at this painting and see that I have a lot of big shadows in this painting already. Because small shadows just add that little bit of whiz or that little bit of specialness to the image that you're painting, you know. These little details, you know, you're looking for the little special things to paint at this level. Because my big strokes is done, you know, all my big strokes in this painting is done. Now it's just the little special paint marks that you would want to put in. And a lot of times what make things special, believe it or not, it's not an object, the paint. It's just the way the light plays on whatever the illusion that you're trying to create. You know, which means that how dark is that shadow? Is that shadow dark enough? Is that shadow gradating properly or the way I want it in a dynamic way? Or when I say gradating, is the shadow falling off, you know? Or is something pushed in the foreground using shadow and lights that I want to be more in the foreground? Is something receding into the background more that I want to kind of fade into the background more? So it's that kind of thing as well that's going on. And even though I'm focusing on her face, I'm not just painting her face, because there's so many things around her face that affect her face, like the knife blade here, and like the axe of Tsenacommacah. All these things help to bring out the face. And see, already I can see her face come forward more, and I'm liking that. The more 3D is, everything is coming, by paying attention to these shadows like this, everything is becoming more 3D. It's less like okay, I painted this, and I have like a brown next to like a magenta kind of color, or to be more specific with art color terms, a burnt sienna next to alizarin crimson, And so I don't want it to look like that. I really want this to start looking like a 3D object more in space. And like I said, I'm just using a little bit of Mars black and ultramarine blue. I really not, because I want this color to recede. I really want these to be some of the darker. These are little minutia shadows, but I want them to be some of the darker tones in the painting. And I'm still looking at juxtapositions of dark tones and light tones that I've already put on the canvas. Just kind of looking at that. Trying to see what that's doing, Just trying to see what it's doing. Because I almost, even though I'm the person that painting this, even though I'm the artist painting it, I'm also like an observer. It's like the way I paint sometimes, it's like I'm not even here painting it. I'm just watching. I'm watching the image emerge, I'm watching, I'm observing the image emerge. It's like the image is here, and I'm bearing witness to it come forward, and I'm bearing witness to the image coming forward. So I worked on that little axe that's in Tsenacommacah's hand a little bit. Now, I don't want just a line here, so I have to be careful because I do want some gradation. But for right now, I'm working in oil so it does not dry very, very quickly. Which is a good thing. That gives me time to do what I need to do. Okay, so, and that's always good to have time to do whatever it is you're doing, Okay. Yeah, I'm liking that. And when I go back, I could really see my shadows better when I walk away from my painting. Then I just come back with that, whatever it is I see where I need to just keep pushing that a little bit more, or maybe I went too far, I'm just making judgment calls at this point based on what I think needs to be done Okay, now I've kind of been working with this brush quite a bit, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my references up a smidge and get this other little set of little reference over here. But I'm going to try out another brush just to see what kind of line qualities I'm getting, because I'm not always sure. I'm not always sure what line qualities I want, you know, or which brush is going to give me what I think I should be getting. Sometimes it's a bit of experimenting that I need to do, but so far this brush is kind of giving me something that I like. I mean, this brush is giving me something of what I like, so definitely liking this brush, but I'm going to sit it to the side for a minute. And now I'm going to go to a cat's tongue. Oh no, well, let me get a smaller one. Let me get my really tiny, where is it at? Oh, I'm going to get my Renaissance brush. This is a #1 cat's tongue. See if I have a smaller one here. Oh, here it is over here. My smaller. This is my #0, a Sculptor, cat's tongue filber. And I'm going to use the same dark tones that I've been working with to see if I can get a little bit finer and nicer line quality. Because I really don't want my lines to get, at this point it's lines. I'm not doing a lot of blending, but I don't want them to get too much. I don't want them to get too much. Don't want them to get too much. Especially when some of the stuff like clothing, when you're doing the shadows around clothing, it's so close to the object that you're painting. In this case, the object is her leg. The shadows are going to be really, really thin and small. You're not going to have big shadows because unless the clothing is drooping, like in this case, the flaze that's coming off his apron is way far from his legs. Okay, so you're going to see more gradation in that shadow. You're going to see a bigger shadow. But when you see little tiny stuff that's close, the shadows can get really, really tiny. And also, these, even though they're little small shadows, the painting should be, the apron should start to pop forward a lot more now. A lot of elements on her, just with these little small dark marks that I'm putting down, they're going to start to really, really pop forward. And I don't really want to put too much paint on a brush either. I just want just a barely a line. Just barely any kind of like a small. These shadows are so small, so tiny against, you know, closed shadows sometimes, that they're just barely, you actually are making a line. I don't usually like to make lines. Okay, now I'm going to get my Raphael brush #2. I'm just going to go in and I'm going to kind of like dry brush some of the edges of these dark lines into what I have already there. And I really don't want to darken that, so what I'm going to do is hit a little bit of zinc white with a little bit of cadmium yellow right there, and a little bit of cadmium orange. And let's see, and I think I'm gonna mix some titanium white in there too, just to get it a little bit more opaque, so it's blending more. Because I don't want too big of a yellowy look. And I'm just gonna make a little glaze. I'm putting a lot of of medium in there because it's not going to be really opaque. It's just going to be nice little glaze right next to that line. And I think I want some more cadmium orange because I don't want it so yellowy. Don't want it too yellow. And what I'm trying to do is kind of make a glaze, but I'm making, this is buckskin, suede, so to speak. And so sometimes with a lot of little glazes, you get a little bit more interesting tones. And I'm just adding into this more of a, I guess, cadmium orange with a little bit of cadmium yellow in it. And I'm doing this kind of as a glaze, but more zinc white, I guess, than anything. Because I do want it translucent. I do want this color, I want the underpainting to show through a little bit. I don't want this as a glaze. You know, you don't necessarily want your glazes to cover what you have already painted. You know, with a glaze, you kind of want that glaze to sort of, you know, be a glaze. You want it to kind of just be a little shimmery color, a little, I should say, semi-glossy color over top of, I guess, more matte or flat color, darker colors, or lighter colors that you have underneath that. So, and this is just going to add more interest to the tones that I already have. Now what I'm going to do is switch over. I'm going to get my little brush holder there. I'm going to switch over to a bigger sable brush. I'm going to use my Raphael brush again. This is a Filbert number 4, Raphael. And what I'm going to do is go into that glaze almost with a dry brush. I'm not even going to add anything to it. And I'm just going to blend that over the existing color and tones, just to kind of add like a little glow of, I guess a glow of like color or light, to create that textural illusion. You know, zinc white now mostly, and just a little bit of cadmium yellow, cadmium orange, and zinc white. Because I do want it to kind of stay sort of orangey, because I really had this glaze down really nice. And this little glaze is kind of going over more of a yellowy color. And it combines with that color because you see through it. And so that yellowy color has white in it. So it's still going to have a little bit of a tan kind of tone. And now I'm going to go into some zinc white, almost straight, and just blend it on the canvas as a glaze right over top of that. Again, now I don't want to get my, you know, the fat over lean system that you hear oil painters talk about. I don't want to get too much oil. That's why my chemistry is only 30% Galkit and 20% Gamsol and 20% linseed oil and 50% Gamsol. So still, I really haven't changed my chemistry a lot. Or what I do is I change the amount of oil that I use based on how I saturate the color on the palette. I don't really change my chemistry to get more or less. I just change the way it is, the way I apply it. So I have more control. That's the way I control it, so that I get the exact amount at the exact place of more, I guess, more gloss or more semi-gloss. I get that where I want. And then when I need some more white, I like at this level to start using more and more zinc white and less cadmium white. And what I'm really doing with that zinc white is I'm just adding little subtle highlights here and there where they need to be. And I want blended highlights in this case, because I'm really not making highlights. I'm just kind of modeling and making it a little bit lighter. And I'm taking the zinc into this orangey color, or this tan color I already have applied And just kind of now just making it less colory and a little bit more like a tone or a tint, because I have some dark on this also. And I'm picking up a little bit of the orange and a little bit of the zinc and just glazing. That's looking nice. I'm liking that. I'm liking that a lot. I'm just getting a little bit more. I'm still using this number 4 Filbert Raphael brush. And I'm just kind of smoothing out some of my tones and colors. Now, what I also have in this is a little bit more of a tint. So I'm going to get some burnt sienna. And then I'm going to kind of add a little bit more of alizarin in there, in that burnt sienna. And a little bit of doxydine purple in there. And then I'm going to kind of do a little bit more darkening here because I want to kind of update my shadow. So I'm going to hit that now. I'm still basically in the warm department here with this shadow. The shadows are not necessarily cool, because what I like to do is I like to put the warm down first. I like to get it down, see it, look at it, identify it, analyze it. And then what I like to do after that, I start going into, so for example, a little bit of alizarin, a little viridian green, and a little bit of cobalt blue, and just a little bit of the doxydine purple. And then I kind of like start getting that cool now. Start cooling out the shadow that I've already warmed up previously. And this is going to make it recess because these colors are cooler. I'm going a little bit more to ultramarine now and viridian. But still, I want some alizarin, so I'm kind of almost graying it some, I guess. But now I have a tendency to keep these colors separate when I apply them. Then I kind of move them around on the canvas where I see the tints and where I see the values. And so I'm just looking for these values. I'm really seeking out the gradation. I'm squinting my eye quite a bit, trying to get those values in there. Because you don't want to flatten out your image. You want the optical illusion of 3 dimensions. So we don't want to flatten out our image at all. We want to keep the image so it's popping, is what I like to call it, popping. So I'm going to ultramarine blue, viridian green, and I'm putting it right next to that warm alizarin and color, just putting it like juxtaposition to it, that warm color, and they kind of sync. One is complementing against the other. So when you actually move away a little bit, it turns into a different color. You don't see it as a warm and a cool. You see it as two. You see warm and cool fighting each other, literally. And it's fighting in a good way, because what happens is they make their own gray. And I'm doing most of this, as a glaze. I'm leaning more toward the viridian green than toward the ultramarine for this cooler tone, because it is like a more earth kind of tone. I mean, the suede comes from an animal, which comes from the earth. It's not a man-made item. Okay, I'm gonna step back a little bit. See what's going on there. Yeah, I'm liking that. So my 3 dimensions is starting to come forward there. And of course, every time I go back away from my painting, another idea of how to paint this comes to mind of what I could do to make it look even better. What I'm going to do is just wipe my brush a little bit, and I'm going to go into a little bit of the orange, the cadmium orange and the cadmium yellow, and a smidge of alizarin to kind of get this pinkish orange kind of color. And then what I'm going to do with that color is add a little bit of zinc white to it, a little bit more yellow. But I do want this to be a little bit more of an intense kind of yellowy orange. There it is. It's getting there. So I really want to lighten this with yellow more so than white. And I'm using a combination of zinc white and titanium white. And when I see the color, I know, but I have to mix the color and see it. And once I mix it and see it, then I know, okay, that's the right color to use right there. And at this point, I don't really want to paint with any, white or any lines. I want to really paint with shape now. My paints, the brush stroke should be more of a shape than any kind of a line at all. Also, at this point, you don't need a whole lot of paint. You just need just the right tone or just the right place. So you're kind of going in with just little small glints of brush marks and color here and there where you need it. Because what light does is light refracts. Light refracts and break all over the place. I mean, really a ray is a ray. It just wants to go, and it does go in according to a certain order. But the light kind of wants to go where it wants to go. And you as the artist, especially if you're a realistic artist, you're trying to translate that. You literally have to translate. How does this light actually want to bounce off of stuff and move around? And how do I portray that using my pigments and my tones to do exactly what I want it to do? So you just have to sit here and be attentive. Like I say, a lot of times, at this point, I'm an observer in my own painting. I'm paying attention to my references. I'm paying attention to the fantasy, the image that I'm trying to create. I'm painting, and the image is kind of telling me how to paint it. I mean, the image is literally telling me how to paint it. I mean, I'm sort of telling it, but the image is talking to me more than I'm talking to it, you know. And so I'm just going with the flow of how this thing comes to me. I'm just painting with that, in that flow. You know, you get into a little bit of a mood. Like I said, what you do is you paint into that mood. Okay, somebody else is waving. So let me wave to that person. What's up? Mike Howard, what's up, man? Waving back at you. Okay. What I'm doing is I'm just painting into that mood, this mood here. I got a little bit of cadmium red that I'm kind of throwing in here and there too, just to get. I do like a touch of like intensity in mine, even if I don't even see the color there. Sometimes it's just that shape or whatever that illusion is I'm trying to make, asking for just a little bit of something right there. It's not anything that I see, any information I'm getting. It's a feeling. It's a feeling that I have about what I'm painting. You know. And the feeling always looks right. It doesn't look unnatural. It looks like that's the way it's supposed to be. And that's the stuff that you can do as an artist, that a camera really just, camera has to capture what's there. It almost has to capture what is there. But a painter doesn't have to do that. Now I'm going to go to the flesh tones. I'll paint this hand better because this hand is really not painted well. So this is it's a Caucasian hand. So I'm going to mix a little bit of, I'm going to start out with a pink base, you know. I'm going to go with titanium. I don't even want it so translucent at this point. I want it more opaque. Then I go over to zinc white, which is more of a yellowy, gives it a yellowy kind of very, right off the bat, a very Caucasian-y. When I say, this is more of a Nordic kind of Caucasian skin tone. And in this case, I kind of wanted to cover what I have there. So I'm going to put a little bit more titanium in there. Looking very closely to what I have on my, already on my canvas. And I'm going to back off just a smidge just to make sure. I don't know if I painted his thumb as good as I needed to. So I'm going to start painting that better. More details. Okay. And I'm painting basically with the light color first, which actually I don't like to do. So I'm going to go back in with a very small brush. And I'm going to look for a small brush. So I'm going to recruit a round Raphael number 2 for this purpose because I want little tiny details. And again, I'm working with this glazes because I already have my darks in here. But I'm going into the dark on this hand, into the shadows. And I'm just going to define some of these shadow shapes. I'm going to incorporate a little bit more ultramarine blue into this black color that I have, or this dark color I already have. Because I do want these little small shadows here to recess. And blue Cooler colors tend to recede more into your painting, whereas warmer colors tend to come forward more towards your eye. And I could have been a little bit more accurate when I painted this earlier. And I shall correct that now. Okay. So I'm going to put some of this aside. I'm looking for another tiny brush, because this is going to be a tiny brush day. I'm going to pull this little small number 2 Raphael. It's a really tiny Raphael. And I'm going to get my Renaissance brush. This is a number 1 cat's tongue. See if that's small enough. I really want something really, really tiny. Yeah, that's about the smallest one I got that I can see very quickly. I do have some other smaller ones, but this is it. Okay, so now what I have with this one, I'm going to go back to that lighter flesh tone. I'm just going to emphasize this shape a little bit more, that I could have painted better when I first painted it. And I might have to, I should have painted that better, because see now at this point I can't paint wet on dry like I want. So, and I'm switching my brushes up quite quickly here, because I want to work with tiny, I want to work with bright, I want to work with dark. So right now I'm going quickly to my highlight colors. Going to my highlight colors, and I want this to cover, so I'm going titanium white with that flesh tone, because this is a very, very bright color here. I mean, now I do have some dark already here, and it's kind of knocking it down. Sometimes that happens, so I anticipate that. So this is not just white or just a very bright color. It has a little bit of mud from the darker colors that I've already put on. So it is making a tint of white. It's not really making I'm not popping on just intense white. And so I'm getting a little bit more of that pinkish color into this now, because I have enough of just the light just hitting the highlights. And so what I'm going to do is hit the very bright tones, wet on the dry. Then I'm going to hit the more tones with color, like the pink of the flesh tone. We'll be hitting some of that. I think I printed something out, but I think I covered it up with my, let me see. I usually get, oh, here we go. Let's get this one. I can see more stuff. The more data, the better. And sometimes you get like a dingleberry on your painting. You got to pull that off. Okay, and I'm going to go back now that I can see more in this other example I have. I'm going to work on the thumb area, the other side of the hand, as his hand is really grasping onto her arm. I mean, he's really clutching onto her quite intensely. And I'm looking at how this is overlapping here to get an idea of how to do this. I want a thin line here. And I might have to go in with my thinner brush. I'm trying to get the smaller side of this filber. But that's not too bad because I do want it to be emphasized. So the thickness of this line is fine. At first I thought I might want a thinner line. Like right here where this warm red is, reddish brown, I'm just going to hit that with a little bit of, to separate that, but almost straight ultramarine blue. Because ultramarine blue is so dark it looks black anyway sometimes. As a matter of fact, a lot of these shadows, I'm mixing them with a little medium, but it's ultramarine blue. It looks black though. I mean, there's a little black that's still in the brush that's probably in there. But essentially, this is ultramarine blue. And I think I like that in juxtaposition to the brush, to the feather, for separation purposes of the individual feathers. Oh yeah, that's nice. And it's coming out of the shadow more. I don't want any mixing, so I just got a little mixy there by mistake. But that's okay, because it kind of looks like some of the fog or the shadow or the gun smoke behind it. Looks a little bit like that gun smoke. So sometimes you make a mistake and it's actually good. Sometimes there's no such a thing as a mistake. They're just all learning experiences. In painting, mistakes are learning experiences. That's all it is, learning experiences. And you could almost say that about life. Life is one giant, I mean, who's to say who's right about what? Any particular topic. I mean, you can look at things politically right now. The Democrats say one thing, the Republicans say the right answer is another thing. The Democrats say the right answer is something else. All these people are, I guess, fairly intelligent people. But now there are certain things that's scientifically proven that you have an analytical mind. And then some things are just downright stupid and wrong. But people perpetrate it and pimp it like they're right, you know. I mean, you can argue with the person, but I think argument is futile. People are going to believe whatever the heck they want to believe. I mean, that's how it's going to happen. Okay, so now I kind of got a little bit different thing going on with the feather. Now, I don't know if I made the feather better or not. I should have probably photographed this before I started. And I haven't done that, I guess, in front of you guys before. So I'm going to do it right now just to show you what I do, because I'm still live. And so what I do is I remove extra stuff out of the way so there's nothing inhibiting my painting. You know, there's an apple box somewhere. I just kind of lay it down so it's not in the way of my shot. You know. Then I grab my phone. Then I go to the little camera app. And I kind of get in the middle. I walk up and get in there. I try to get this thing as parallel as I can to the rectangle, to the plane there. And I got to get right down so I'm there. I don't want to have this thing skewed too much. Just want to keep it as straight as possible. And I film it under the same light. I don't use any flash or anything. Try to take just one picture. And what I do is I have older pictures as my painting evolved, just still pictures. And I just go into my little photo app, put them all in an album together. I'm on my iPhone, so I just go on my little app, click on it, add to album. This album is the Abduction of Matoaka album, or Matoaka's piece. Okay, then what I do is I go to that album and then I just go back and forward. And I look at what I had before, and I look at what I have now. And I just go back before, after, before. And I try to see which one is better. Did I get better, or did I make it worse? Did I make it better, or did I make it worse? You know? Sometimes I make things worse. You know? Sometimes it's looking really nice before, and all of a sudden I go do something and jack it up. And I think I'm making it better, but I'm not. But when you're zoomed way out, you know, kind of like an iPhone size picture, you can't see. You know, you're getting the overall look of your painting, and the overall look of my painting is established. It's not going to be a whole lot of changes that's going to really get to take you, you know. That's not going to really happen. So you have to kind of say, okay, well, did I just do this better, or did I just do it worse? What did I actually do here? You know, did I achieve something, or did I evolve the painting? And in terms of the hand that I painted, definitely that's an evolution. In terms of where the tomahawk is and the shoulder, that's an evolution. In terms of the tones on her face, a little bit of evolution, yes, it evolved. That's another glaze, so I like that. You know, I'm talking about the overall. And sometimes I just like to just sit here with my phone. Not even really looking, I'm looking at the painting, but I'm also looking at before and afters, because, you know, I want to know the ideas that I have. Is this good, or is it bad? Am I getting better, or am I getting worse? Now, when I'm up close, the textures of my feathers look better. When I'm far away, the textures of my feathers look less good. So then, you as an artist, you want to say, well, your viewer is going to be looking both. They're going to be close, and they're going to be far. So then you want to take the elements from each version through the evolution of your painting, and you combine them so that your painting looks good up close and your painting looks good far away. Now, what I want to do with that texture that I just added to those feathers, I want to just let that set up and dry. I want to give that 24 hours so it can set up and it can dry. That's going to help me, because I can paint wet on dry, I can paint over stuff, I can experiment, wipe stuff off if I need to, but personally, I like the painting. I'm probably going to work on Tsenacommacah's apron and his pants next when I go into some reiterations, you know, and of course I want to still mess with the sky some more. Still not happy with, and of course the texture on the fort, I want to deal with that some more. The texture on the roof, and I'm going to add a arrowman, or if you call it that, or another native warrior with a bow and arrow, kind of coming into the frame. So I kind of like stuff coming into the frame, not quite in the frame yet, but coming in there. So I'm going to add one more little dude there, just to kind of make that side of the frame toward the top of the middle, just add some more energy, something else there that bringing you into the actual story, bringing you into the actual scene. So I'm just looking at, and then of course, there's no mistake. You always can just paint over something. You can paint over something that you've already painted. There's no such a thing as, oh, this is messed up, I messed up, I want to do it a different way. You do it a different way. You just paint it again. You say, well, paint, oh, that's messed up. Well, you're learning something. When you paint something a second time, it helps you to learn. You cannot paint, you shouldn't be lazy, because painting something a second time, it teaches you how to paint better. You paint the exact same thing multiple times. In art school, they make you do that all the time. You paint the exact same thing over and over and over again. And every time you paint that, if you're not just doing it as a chore, but you're actually doing it with the idea to learn, you learn to paint better and to draw better. I mean, that's how they do it. It's kind of like mundane, but the old masters, there was no photography in the old days. So if you wanted an image, you went to them. And so the whole village, the whole town is coming to this artist saying, I want a painting done of myself. I want this done. And of course, what the artist is doing is he's got linear ways to get a lot of busyness. He's going to get good by virtue of having too much to do. So I did this little session of painting today. It's almost 4 hours so far. And I can barely see any difference, because this is where it gets a little boring. This is why, I'm doing these live sessions. I just kind of stop the paintings right here, about 80% done. And then what I do is, at a later date, I just go around to all of the paintings, so I don't get bored with one particular painting, and I just touch them all up. I might not be live during Christmas season. I'm more like doing family stuff, making cakes and, pies. And well, it used to be with no COVID-19. Hopefully it's over. You go see your different relatives and, activities. You're going doing different things. Because people are off. People have are dedicating more time. Nowadays with COVID, people do have more time, so you can almost do this anytime. So, but basically, this painting is about 80% done. And everything else, almost everything I do to this is just adding details. Now, the only thing I can think is in the legs of Tsenacommacah. That needs some work. And maybe some of my background, he tightened up some more too, and maybe a few little elements added, but for the most part, I'm ready to go on to the next one. Now, am I actually ready for the next one? Well, I'm switching up my game a little bit, because what I'm doing is I am switching to oil-based prime as opposed to acrylic primes. Why? Because it prevents sinking in. Even though on all these big paintings I'm doing, I don't see a whole lot of sinking in. I'm not getting bad sink in. Now, I've had some sink in on some other paintings before. And it could have been the type of gessos I was using, or it could have been just the lack of blocking, because when you block, you kind of put a ground down. And then you put another thing over top of that and you model. So since I've been getting into the blocking and then the modeling and then the glazing, I'm building up so much oil over top of that acrylic, even if the oil does sink in. Now, again, these paintings are not that old. These paintings are a few months old. I think I started the Kaimatu Kingdom one, or the Haru one, in March 1. And then Around the Throne is like April 1 or something like that, or somewhere in April. And then this one was somewhere in May, the Abduction of Matoaka. Uh, I think the Tupac painting and Nipsey, that was during the time that Nipsey died. You know, about a month or so after that. So that one's about a year old. However, you know, I haven't seen that much sinking in on that one. You know, in terms, when I say sink in, that's when the oil sinks in and some colors look flat and some colors look shiny. And it could be just the control of my medium. As I just control my medium all the way through, I just don't put too much medium in. And I just keep it at 50%. You know, whether it's Galkit, linseed, or all linseed, or all Galkit. 50% Gamsol, 50% oils. I like to use 30% Galkit and 10% linseed just because I know that gives me about 24 hours. A painting's dry. A paint's not going to be, especially in this heat. I mean, this time of year, 24 hours is dry. Now, in the wintertime, I'm going to use all Galkit. Why? Because it's cooler and my painting is going to dry. Oil paint is going to, it catalyzes, it doesn't dry, it actually, you know, oxidize. Oxygen is released to cause it to set up. So it becomes dry. So that takes longer and cooler temperatures in the winter. So I use almost paint, just 50% Galkit, 50%, so I mix my medium according to the weather actually. And or according to the temperature that's affecting my studio. 50% Galkit, 50% Gamsol in the winter, and then I up the linseed oil as it gets hotter. And then when it's really hot, I may use all 50% linseed oil and 50% Galkit. But who wants the thing to dry too slow? You know, if it dries instead of 24 hours, if it dries in 16 hours, great. Or if it dries in 12 hours, great. But most of the time I'm going to be sleeping, so it doesn't really matter, you know. So, but it can be bone dry when you get it the next day. Not just dry enough, but absolutely dry. So that's good too. So I kind of like 30% Galkit. And they make the same kind of luster, linseed oil and the Galkit, in terms of the satin or the gloss or the matte or whatever. You can control that luster exactly the same, linseed oil, and even if you use stand oil, you know, stand oil is more clear. They say that linseed oil kind of browns things a little bit. Not really, not the way I put the paint on, but in the Galkit, I guess it breaks because it looks brown, but I don't see any problems. But again, these paintings are not old for anything to change on them, but oil just don't change like that. I mean, you got to go 500 years before something might brown. And most likely it isn't. You know, like that's what happened with the Renaissance stuff. But they have chemistry they can use to, I guess, balance that. I don't know, to stop it from happening. You know, but again, after I finish these paintings, I'm going to oil the painting out. That basically means I'm going to take 50% stand oil, 50% Gamsol, and just paint it over the whole painting. Take cheesecloth and I'm going to wipe it off just to leave a slight little satiny shimmer. And that oil is going to sink into all of the uniform, the whole painting, sink in. Just give all my colors a nice, it will enrich the colors, give a nice little silky satiny finish. If there's any canvas texture, that even helps. Then after that sets up, sometimes I give it a week, sometimes I just leave it like that and let somebody else do my varnish. I would get some varnish. I use gambling varnish. I don't use other types of Dumar varnish. I just use gambling varnish. And what is the purpose? The varnish is made so you can wipe it out. In other words, it's a gloss that's on your painting, but it's a protective, clear coat. It can be satiny, it can be glossy, it can be kind of like just matte. Depends on how you apply it. But say over 100 years, the picture starts to get brown because somebody had a fireplace or whatever, and some browning happened, some dirt got on it, dust got on it. You can just clean that varnish off and basically get back to the raw paint. Preserve, because like putting saran wrap, over your painting, and then put a new coat of varnish, Dumont varnish back on it. A lot of times that happens. And then sometimes you could just use other very, very lightweight cleansers and just clean the varnish if the varnish is cleanable, you know. So there's a lot of reasons, you know, there's a lot of ways to treat your painting to create that luster so it doesn't look too matte in one place and too shiny in another place. And but for the most part, by the time you oil it, if you oil it right, and sometimes when I oil in, I put a little bit more oil in a place that looks a little too matte, and a little less oil in a place that already looks too sheeny or glossy, and get it balanced. And that's an art all by itself. It's kind of like painting, but it's different. What you're trying to do is just balance your painting to make sure the luster is consistent. That's basically when you're at the very final step, just before you're ready to frame your painting. Yes, I will probably wind up framing most of these paintings. However, my paintings could be shown, because I paint them gallery, you know, gallery wrap. In other words, I paint the sides and around the back of the painting, so that if you don't want to put a frame up and you just want the picture as is, the way it is, if it's hanging on a big giant wall in a big giant building, a house or whatever, it's still going to look good without a frame. So that's a gallery wrap style. So I give you options. I always paint like that to have options. Well, with gallery wrap, you're going to have a thicker painting. It's going to be about 1.5 inches. I might even get experimenting with 7/8 or 1/2 inch paintings, big, so that you can put them in more shadow frames, because there seem to be more interesting shadow frames. But the shadow, or you could just, I guess, build the frame out so it can accommodate a thicker painting. You know, so there's a lot of things you can do. I guess I'm ending this with that little bit of conversation and then looking at this. And I think my little painting session for today is I'm looking at what I've done. With the feathers, it doesn't really look like I've done a whole lot different. The feathers look brighter in the version I have now. But the texture, when you go up close, looks better. But there are some things that's going on with the shadows and the way things hit that I like in the first version, that I'm going to go back once that's set up, because I do like the texturing, and go back in. And I've done a whole lot of things that make Matoaka pop a little bit more away from John Roth. But the forearm thing is different for sure. You know, the arm and the hand that's actually grabbing John Roth is different. And so I'm going to look at that. I'm going to look at that some more. And I'm going to readdress that. And I'm going to redress it some. And I'm looking at the picture, and from far away, I think my fall off is still too abrupt. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to just knock that down, because even though it's darker, I think the fall off is too abrupt. So what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to get my number 6 Raphael, and is this my number 6? Yeah, this is it. I think I want a number 8 Raphael too. I want a slightly bigger one for blending purposes. And I'm going to just hit it with a little Gam salt to clean it out. Okay. And I don't even really need to reference anything, because the only thing I really want to do is soften this. And I'm going to use my rag to clean out anything that's on it. And this is just a glaze, but I just want to soften this whole thing right here. So I don't want this line going up her arm. I do kind of want it going there. And in my reference drawing, I have it more. And I think I made a decision on another date when I was painting this to have it less. And I think going back less is better. So what I'm going to do is kind of break it up. Break it up, all the way up. just kind of break up that line. I don't want that to be any kind of line. I want it to be a tone, a fall off. Okay, let me see, just with the broken up line, let me see how that looks from a distance. That looks better. And then I'm going to go in with my rosemary brush. Again, I'm going to hit that with some Gamsol, clean that out, and wipe it off with my rag. And what this is going to do, this should soften it nicely. And since these hairs are kind of wild and loose, it's going to break it up and just throw this specular highlight all over the place. So it won't be just in one line like that. Just break that up just a little bit more. Don't want it so uniform. And this is probably going to require many different applications of glaze, because sometimes you can glaze so thin that the paint starts breaking up and you got more glaze than anything else. So what I do is just go back with a little bit more pigment here and there, pick up a little bit and just blend it back into there, so I don't have wimpy glaze. You know, who wants wimpy glaze? I'm just using my number 7 Raphael, my number 6 Raphael. I just picked up a little bit of more cadmium red mixed with cadmium orange mixed with a little burnt sienna. Just to add a little bit more tone and pigment into this glaze. I do want it translucent, but I don't want it wimpy translucent. A little bit more burnt sienna, that kind of orangey cadmium thing that I've been blending. Just to make that tone look a little bit more there. Okay. I don't really want anything to look too much one color. Okay, let's see what we got. Yeah, that's pretty good. That's better. Yes, it doesn't look so hard. I almost feel like I need to take another picture. And I think I shall. Okay, where's my phone? Because that forearm is a major element. In the middle. And I just softened it. And even though it's a subtle softer difference, it is a difference. And it does draw the eye, because of where it is and how it is. Okay, that's good. So let me take a peek at that. Okay, I'm going to add that to my album, because I want everything nice and in order. Go to my little album, see what I got there. again, improvement. I like that. And the three-dimensionality is there. And did I like the other arm better? But the other arm came forward more. It would look more plastic and inserted on top of. But like I said, I'm probably going to be a combination of the both. I'm going to put this one, let this dry. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to hit it again on a different day. But most all the changes I made, and sometimes, like I say, the painting has to go through its evolutions. But most of the changes I made, I definitely like the change I made on his garment a little bit better. Softer, more flowing. You know, it just should be gentler. A gentler look is definitely better. Because the fall off is more nice, okay. Okay, so everything is coming along. Everything is happy. I'm kind of happy. I mean, there's things to do, but like I say, the core of the painting, in my opinion, is, of course, I'm the artist though, so I guess so, but it's successful. So everything else at this point is just embellishing, 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 embellishing. So again, I have to, behind that, you can see like a piece of canvas dangling. So behind that is the next canvas I'm going to stretch. And I have put 2 coats of PVC size on. And I will be making a video that I'm going to upload to YouTube that demonstrates how to do a large oil prime canvas yourself using PVC size, gambling PVC size, and gambling oil crown. So stay tuned for that, because I'm going to put that on YouTube. I'm probably going to put that on my Steve Foreman Creative Studios as well. For those who want to learn how to do a large, stretch your own, large format oil prime canvas, and you can do that for a lot less than you can to buy one. I don't even know if you can buy an oil frame prime canvas this big. That's basically 69 inches by 103 inches. I don't know if you can, I don't know if they're, I've never seen this. I mean, all of the stores online, I don't think any sell a ready-made canvas like that. I don't think you can go to Michael's or Plaza Art or any actual physical art store and buy a canvas that big already stretched and ready to go. So if you get to a certain size, you want an oil prime canvas, you absolutely have to make that yourself. Actually, to tell you the truth, even if it's a gesso, acrylic gesso canvas, you can't buy these sizes. Now the Tupac and Nipsey one, yes, you can buy those sizes at various art stores, because that's 40 by 60 inches. I think at the art stores they go up to about 48 by 72, maybe. And often many art stores don't even have that. And that's where you stop. Now 48 by 72 is a nice large painting. Even the Nipsey Tupac one is large enough for most people's homes, even a large home with large walls. However, for the true mansion, you know, these large format paintings is what you want, or installation in a vestibule, or atrium, or entranceway of a major building, you know. These paintings would be great, because, you know, they're going to be at some distance away, or in a museum or a gallery type installation with substantial walls. These are great paintings for that. Otherwise, maybe I should scale all my paintings back down. You know, scale them back down, you know, but I like the monumental size. I really like this. So I'm just infatuated with it, and I should paint what I want, regardless of how much sense it makes, right? Okay, so anyway, and I guess these days that's what I'm doing. I'm just doing whatever I want to do. Regardless of sensibility, you know. Just do whatever I want to do. Which is a good thing. I guess it's a good place to be in, you know. I guess not everybody can do that, or not everybody want to do that.
but I do. So that's the mood I'm in. So I got to work through that, I guess. If there's something wrong with it, then okay, I eventually would evolve out. And if there's something right with it, I guess, oh, that's a smart move, you know. So, you know, you do what you do until you discover something else better to do, you know, or how to, or whatever. Okay, so, alright, so, now, let's see, I got probably a few more minutes left in this live, I suppose. Am I still live? Yeah, I guess I am still live. So I got a few more minutes left in here. So, let's see, what else could I tackle here? I mean, it's not a major undertaking here, but see what I can do in this few more minutes that I have left. Oh, I could do that little warrior dude over on the side with the bow and arrow that I want to do. I can do that. I did have a paint a reference picture over here. Oh, I was going to kind of glaze in lines, you know, because facial texture is better. But you know what? I think I might have to use my own face for some textures. Take a picture of that. So let me see what I can do. Let me get a pencil, some paper, some sketches here, and see. And look, I got a 2-inch pencil, and it don't really matter which paper. Let's see how I'm going to get that guy in there. See how I'm going to make him. I'm going to put a little sketchy sketch. How I want this thing to go. Okay. Okay, I think I got a smidge of an idea about how I'm going to do this with a little quick sketch I have done here. Okay, now I got to select a brush. I think I have one that's already. I'm going to go back to the first one I started out with this is synthetic sable. I'm going to paint this with a really dark tone because I kind of want them in silhouette. And where do I want them? Where do I want them in an actual picture? I don't want them in a picture because I want to put some tone in them, but I just want just this arrow in, and I want them to go in. Yeah, I want him to go in just like this, and he's toward the forefront a little bit.
little bit more toward I don't know how much of him is going to be in this frame though. It's going to be in the frame. But where do I see him at? I think I see him about right here. I'll start his arrow, hold his bow, arching right here. I don't know if I should have it more in or not. But so far, this is how I'm going to have it. And I'm going to start it with the darker tones. And then his arrows coming right into play, right there. And now his arm, his hand is holding the bow right here. Forearm. How much of his arm is going to be in this? Not much. Of course, there he is. That's it. That's all we're going to have on it. See if I like that or not. I might have to wipe it up. Don't know. And I think it's too high, so I'm gonna have to wipe it up. I want it's lower, because he shouldn't be higher than the other fella that's in there. So the great thing about wet on dry, even if it's a dark color like this, you can take your rag, you can go in. This is your eraser. That's great. Another thing about oil, you don't have to paint over it to get. You can just wipe it up. In 20 minutes, that will start setting up with acrylic. Unless you have some other dryers in it, but then you get what, 30 minutes, maybe 35 or 40. I mean, I won't that long, but there's still going to be some of it that still stays, that starts to dry. Whereas I got almost all of this up with just the rag. Even though that was very near black. Okay, so I was a little high with it, so I'm going to start over. Because I'm just adding this. You know, this is just off of a whim. I think I want to make his arrow go in, not where it was. I started out by getting the arrow as the start point. Then I'm going to look at that arrow. It's going to be almost touching that fella there. Maybe even overlapping. Yeah, I'm going to have you even go in and kind of overlap him in space. Okay. Then I'm going to have this bow. Okay, there we go. Now we have his bow. Next, I'm going to put in his hand on his bow and arrow, and his arm. we got a lot of his forearm in this time, in this version. Then we get to where his elbow is, his bicep, and his shoulder. So, and then we're gonna get kind of his head in there a little bit. So I like that. Once we know what that is, we can determine where his torso and chest is going to be. There he is. I like that better. Okay, and then I'm going to just get, like he's stepping into the frame, just a little bit of his leg and foot. Into the frame, and I'm gonna just give him a little bit more bend to his foot, just a little bit, so we can know that's a knee and that's a leg. There, that just adds a little bit more body language to it. There he is. Okay, now that I kind of have him in there, the darker tone, I want to move this over to here. I'm going to go in with a lighter color now and put in, of course I'm just making this up right out my head, you know, I mean I don't have any reference. I just did a quick sketch. Now I'm just going to have some lighter browns here. I don't want a lot of details with this guy, I just want just a hint that it's another warrior. Of course, I'm wet on wet, trying to blend, and of course, I got all this dark, so. Grab some coverage paint. In other words, I'm going to throw it in kind of thick. But where his hand's going to be with this. Bicep. Of course, he's coming right out of the shadow, sort of. He's coming out the side of the painting, so we don't need a lot of detail. I don't want a lot of detail with him. I do want him in there. Okay, toward the bottom, this is mixing with the black I already used. That's okay. What I'm going to do is grab some more of that deep buckskin color. The yellow and the orange, the titanium, heavy on the yellow brown. Just try to hit the moccasin and his knee in there just a little bit. Again, this is just blocking this in for right now, just getting it there. And I'm gonna refine it later. Once this coat dries, I got something to paint on top of. I'm gonna hit it with a little bit of red, kind of orange it out. So I don't want his buckskin so yellow. I want it more brown. And now for his bow, just going to add a little bit of brown in it because it is made out of wood, but it's still dark so you can see it. Then I'll put some highlights in there. And I'm going to get another brush. Where's my little thin brush? Here it is. No, that's not the one I want. I want the little round that I had earlier. Where is she? There she is. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is go in with my highlight color. Get a lot of white, get some yellow. And I'm going to have it really thin and watery and runny. It's not really watery because it just has a lot of medium in it, so it's a little watery. But I wanted to kind of go over what I have so you can see it. So put my highlight color on it. There we go. Okay, and then I'm going to add the string. He's pulling back. I'm going to do that with a light color. Again, very runny. This thing is getting pulled back, man. He's getting ready to snipe somebody from a distance. Okay, now, that looks pretty good. I'll just add a little couple of glints on his arrow. I just want him to just be kind of mystique in. I want him to be in so clear and obvious. But I don't want him to be in too much in the background either. I just want him to be kind of, you know he's there, you know he's taking aim, you know he's getting ready to fire, and you know he's got somebody in sight there. I'm going back and reinforcing some of the darker tone on the other side of this bow and arrow, just to keep it shadowy, keep it mystique looking. There it is. Okay. Come back with a middle tone again, get the brown of the wood at the bottom here. It kind of misses some of that. There we go. And go back with the dark tone again. Because I don't want to get rid of too much of that. That's it. That's it right there. Okay, I'm going to separate his moccasin from his pants leg. Straight off the bat, make him look a little less lime-like. Okay, now that's pretty good. I like that. So now I'm going to go back to this synthetic bristle, dark tone. Of course, this is a wrap painting, and I didn't have this here before, so I'm going to continue this on the side. With his arrow, his bow drawn, his silhouetted body, and his body. And him in his shooting stance. Yeah, and that brings you, this is going to bring you into the painting. And then I'm going to put a shoulder in there. There we go. I'm just painting this guy, making it up out my head as I'm painting it. But, I mean, I see the picture. I know what it's supposed to be, so not hard to do. Is what it should be. See, this doesn't really require a whole lot of details. So most of this is going to be kind of shadowy in the silhouette. That's what most of this is going to be. Shadowy and in the silhouette. Now I'm just going to get this basic skin tone in here. Again, a shadowy skin tone. I'm going to paint over what I had here. I've been wanting to do this for a while. I've been thinking about it. Now I've finally done it. Not using really any references at all. I'm just painting this right out my head. And it's working. Again, this is in the corners. It's not to be made to be focused on, so we're not talking extreme details that I want actually on this. We just want it to be known that there's an arrowman there. There's a warrior with a bow and arrow. He's taking aim. He's going to get down to some business with that thing. That's all we need to know at this point. With so this is all that needs to be. This little bit of painting is all about right here. It's not really about much else. It's a great way I can use the last of what I got of this, certain paints. Just get everything on get as much on the actual canvas as possible. I mean, I won't waste at the end of my day. Paint dry up on the palette. I mean, if I can put it on the actual painting, so much the better. Okay, great. Go back to this dark, somewhat stiffer brush for some pointy details, so I can paint in some dark shadow details, like underneath his arm, the arm that's grabbing. And just really just painting his rib cage, in the shadow with this darker color. Chiaroscuro kind of thing. Coming out of that brown, because his body's a little bit. It's not hitting that much light because I got him on the corner, so I'm assuming the light gets dimmer over here. And there we are. That's all we need right there. That's complete. Good. And I'm going to let it go like that. I can always touch it up later and let that dry. Liking it.